Wow, this episode was so good. I mean, you know I love the first three episodes. First three episodes were great. Episode 4, I liked it. It was good, but it was nowhere near the level of these other episodes. And something you probably noticed is that I did do a video on last week's episode. It just, I tried to be all fancy and make a good quality video with some actual footage from the episode, but then Warner Brothers took it down. So, but here we are, we're back to talk about Titans Season 3, Episode 5. Again, this was a great episode because it's a flashback episode. We really get answers to all these questions we've been having about Red Hood and Jason Todd's transformation into the Red Hood, his death, how he came back to life, his connection to Scarecrow. All of those questions are answered here, and I really enjoyed it because, usually when they do episodes like this where it's like completely a flashback and has nothing to do really with the main storyline and pushing it forward, I'm usually not the biggest fan of it. But the way they did it here in this episode, I loved it. And if I'm being honest, this might even be my favorite episode of the season so far. And this episode is called Lazarus, and with a title like that, you can probably see where we're going in this episode. I obviously had that idea when I first heard about it, but seeing how this season was going so far with Red Hood's origin, I didn't know if they'd take it that far, but oh boy, they did. So anyways, guys, before we get into breaking this down, of course, spoiler warning if you've not yet seen Titans Season 3, Episode 5, Lazarus. So we start off the episode with basically where we left off in episode 4, where now Red Hood and Scarecrow have escaped. Dick is now off looking for them. We never see him in this episode, but we just have this quick scene in the beginning of the episode where it is still present day, and Red Hood and Scarecrow are just going over their plan of what they're trying to do. And it seems pretty much like something you see a lot in superhero things where seems like Scarecrow's plan is that he wants Red Hood to cause fear in Gotham, and then they're going to become the saviors of it, which sounds pretty interesting. And then also in this scene, Scarecrow actually gives Jason another dose of his anti-fear toxin and says, yeah, you're taking another hit of your happy juice. And this happy juice, which is not very happy, plays a really big role in this episode because we also get the origin of that. But this is when we flash back to 3 months ago, where Jason, he's dreaming. He's been having nightmares for months now, and he's dreaming about Donna. This was really interesting. Why is he dreaming about Donna? And obviously, we know she's going to be coming back in the season. She's going to be brought back to life. Real excited to see that, but so far we've got nothing from that in this season. Hopefully next week, maybe the week after. I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But when he wakes up from his dreams, Bruce is really concerned about him and his mental health and all that stuff. So he wants him to go see his friend Dr. Leslie Tompkins, which was really cool to see this character show up in this episode. Because, as you may know, I'm a huge fan of Gotham, like Gotham the TV series. And Leslie Tompkins played a huge role in that show. So I really enjoyed seeing a new iteration of the character in this series. And so Jason is automatically like, no, I'm not going to go to some therapist. That's not what I do. I'm cool and everything. So he goes off with his friend Molly, and they actually go to confront this guy that's been trafficking teens, and Jason gets beat up because he automatically gets flashbacks to getting beat up by Deathstroke, and he's basically got a form of PTSD. We're actually seeing like that a lot in a lot of superhero content lately, but it works with these characters. And yeah, like if you went through that thing that Jason did with Deathstroke, you'd probably be feeling it too. But just like Bruce wanted, because he was actually banning Jason from being Robin until he went to go see her, he goes to visit Dr. Leslie Tompkins, and he talks about, everything that's going on. He mentioned his parents, how his father was killed by Two-Face, all that cool stuff. But then this was probably my favorite scene of the episode because, it was just so filled with Easter eggs, because Jason goes back to the Batcave, and we see that he opens up this vault of basically Batman villain trophies, and it's this whole collection. You see Scarface, who of course is the dummy that the ventriloquist uses. We previously saw this character in live action also on Gotham. We see Two-Face's coin, we see Catwoman's whip and her goggles, we see what I believe is Ra's al Ghul's blade, we see some Joker cards, and of course, finally, the one that Jason is attracted to is not only fear toxin, but also the Scarecrow Mask. And this is something I pointed out in my trailer breakdown that I did after the first 3 episodes when that new trailer dropped, that Scarecrow Mask. So now that it's in Batman's inventory, I'm not sure if we're going to see Dr. Crane actually suit up as Scarecrow in the season. I'm still really hoping that we do see that, but it was really cool to see the Scarecrow mask in this scene. But one thing I really like seeing in this episode is the relationship between Jason and Bruce, because we know this is a thing. We've seen this since season 1, that Bruce has been taking care of Jason, and Jason has been Bruce's new Robin this whole time. But we never really got to see him. We never really got to see that relationship. Literally, the first episode of the season was our first interaction between these two characters on screen. So it was really nice to see these actual scenes here, especially because, I'm personally not the biggest fan of Ian Glenn's Bruce Wayne. I mean, it is an older version of the character, but we just haven't really gotten enough from the character. And these scenes here in this episode, I really enjoyed seeing, because you really get to see that compassionate relationship between those two characters. And because most of what we've seen from Bruce Wayne in this series, he just seems like a jerk. Like, he really does. It seems really out of character for Bruce Wayne, but in these scenes, you really see his compassion and see how much he really cares for Jason. And he even calls him his son, which of course Jason likes hearing because, like I said, his father was murdered by Two-Face. So that was really cool to see. And we also get a cool reference here where Bruce mentions, he has to go take care of a Lex Luthor thing in Metropolis. That was really interesting. But later he takes Jason back to Crime Alley, which is of course the alleyway where his parents were murdered. And he tells Jason that he doesn't want him to be Robin anymore because he doesn't want to lose anyone else to Gotham, which, it is a really, I don't know if you'd say controversial scene, but it's definitely a scene that could go either way. I think the best interpretation of the scene is that Bruce really does care about Jason that much that he doesn't want him to have to go through all this stuff that Gotham is doing and affecting his mind and everything. But of course Jason doesn't have the greatest reaction to this. He just kind of goes off the deep end, and he goes to Arkham Asylum to visit the Scarecrow himself, Dr. Jonathan Crane, and he proposes that he wants Jonathan Crane to create a formula for basically an anti-fear toxin, where instead of bringing your fears to life, this will instead make it so that you have no fear of anything at all. And of course, Crane is like, what do I get in exchange? And what he's going to get in exchange is not only Batman information, but also supposedly a way out of Arkham. So then we end up getting a really cool montage here of Jason buying that apartment space so that he can then basically turn that into a chemistry lab, do some experimentation with trying to figure out this formula because the formula Crane gave him was a little off. And I mean, like, doing all the testing on yourself, that's got to do something to you. He also dies here because then this is when it actually works. He gets this anti-fear toxin, he becomes officially fearless. And Jonathan Crane is like, alright, now the way we need to test this is you need to face your fear and go after Batman's worst enemy, the Joker. And that is, of course, where we catch up to what we saw at the beginning of this season, where the Joker is causing mayhem in Gotham City. He's hiding out at Amusement Mile, and Jason decides to go after him all alone because he doesn't have any fear. He's not scared of the Joker. So he goes after him. He gets brutally beat up, murdered by the Joker with that crowbar, all that good stuff. But now we get the explanation of what truly went down here, because yes, he really did die, and we see his body in the morgue and everything. But then we continue that scene that we saw, I think, in episode 2, where his body was being dragged away from the morgue, and it is actually dragged downstairs into the basement where there is indeed a Lazarus pit. And again, this was something I wasn't expecting because, the episode is called Lazarus, but I didn't know that they'd actually go that far when it comes to comics accuracy here. And I do love how Scarecrow even mentions like a reference to Ra's al Ghul, like, oh yeah, thanks to Ra's al Ghul for that Lazarus pit and all that stuff. But the Lazarus Pit does exactly what it was meant to do and brings Jason Todd back to life. And of course, it is a very Pet Sematary type thing. Like, you can bring him back to life with the Lazarus Pit, but the way it works is that they're never the same as they were before. And Jason was already messed up. And this is something I really liked about this episode as well, because, I already felt bad for Jason, but now, especially seeing in this episode, things like him going to therapy and everything, seeing how he was getting better, he was starting to get help, and then boom, Scarecrow does this to him and transforms him into the Red Hood. But again, it's such a tragic downfall for this character, but I love it so much because it's so good. This episode was so amazing. I absolutely loved it, and we do get a cool ending with him officially becoming Red Hood and him actually getting revenge on that guy that kidnapped Diego, and then he reunites with Molly and everything, and that's kind of like his final act as Robin, and now he's officially become Red Hood, and he goes off just murdering a bunch of people, and that is where the episode ends. But yeah, guys, again, great episode. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed seeing all these answers to our questions. Again, I was not expecting that level of comics accuracy with the Lazarus Pit and all that stuff, but it was really awesome to see. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Titans Season 3, Episode 5, Lazarus? Let me know all your thoughts, theories, and predictions for the future of this season. And of course, as always, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date on everything goes on in the DC life.